Today I am breaking down 5 watch myths that cost people lots of money or just push them into the wrong watch. This is no fluff, just the truth, examples and what you should do instead. And of course, if you learn something new, hit the like and sub button so other watch nerds can see it too. It really does help out. And with that said, let's move right forward into myth number 1, that being that in-house is always better. Now, I will say my point here is more so in the affordable range, because once you get into that Rolex price and above, you should expect something that is in-house. That said, people often hear in-house movement and automatically think that it is going to be a superior, better made, better spec'd and better finished movement, which just isn't always the case. Sometimes, in fact quite often it is, especially in higher end pieces, but oftentimes, especially in the lower end watches, it is just a marketing tax. In reality, a well-regulated Sellita, Miyota 9000 series or Seiko NH/6R can be cheaper to service, easier to regulate and more reliable long term because parts are everywhere and any semi-competent watchmaker can work on them. In-house can mean great innovation, or it can mean unproven, expensive and hard to fix. And in the end, a long, expensive trip back to the original manufacturer, the brand itself, if you ever need a repair or any servicing done. Instead, judge the movement by the objectives. I'm talking about accuracy, serviceability, availability, reliability, and thickness to case design. If an in-house caliber provides genuine high-end tech or something that is a positive, for example, coaxial escapement, spring drive, detent duplex or dynaptial escapements, etc., great. If not, don't pay a premium just for the label. The only thing I will say is that generally speaking, in-house calibers will be better finished, or at least more interestingly finished movements, compared to the more mass-manufactured stuff. Although sometimes you can get brands like, let's say, Zelos, which do custom Persuade/ETA 7001s, which, yes, it's a mass-manufactured movement, but they skeletonize or customize it in-house, which does make it more interesting. Oh, also, very quickly, I am currently hosting a giveaway for when I hit 15k subs. All you need to do to enter is like, sub and comment the hidden message in the video. It takes 3 seconds, costs you nothing, and it helps me out greatly. And of course, you have a chance to get a free watch out of it, so why not? Moving on from that though is myth number 2, which is higher water resistance is always better. Now, unless you're actually diving, you just don't need high water resistance. Realistically, for daily life, 50 to 100 meters of water resistance is more than enough. That covers rain, that covers splashing it in the sink when washing your hands. Really, that 100 meters will normally cover a shower or even a slight swim. Like, generally, if a watch has 100 meters of water resistance and a screw down crown, which is very important, then you can swim with it just fine. But people here 200 or 300 meters of water resistance and say, well, obviously that's better than 100 on a daily. But realistically, chasing, let's say, 200 meters of water resistance just means a thicker case, worse proportionings, usually a closed case back, but if you want an open display case back, that's even more thickness, which personally I think seeing the movement of the watch you're buying is a pretty important thing these days. Or you could even get a taller crystal and just general extra bulk. Now, for a daily, the watch should usually be able to slide under a cuff or just be clean and thin and comfortable. And for that reason, going for higher water resistance just isn't always better. It's something you can sort of flex and you can sort of brag about in terms of a spec sheet. Yes, absolutely. But realistically, day to day, unless you are specifically buying a watch to actually dive with, it just makes no sense to me. Instead, I would say match the water resistance to your life. If you're at a desk, a gym, or you go for an occasional swim, 100 meters of water resistance is perfect. If you live in the water, as in your job is in the water, or let's say you're just a genuine beachgoer who loves to go for a swim day to day and you live by the beach, if you're in the water all the time, fair enough, get a proper diving watch. But if you're just like me and 99.9% of watch collectors who buy for some reason a 300 meter diver as a daily to wear to the office or to friggin' Sainsbury's, it's just not worth it for that extra bulk and thickness. It will wear worse, the proportions will be bigger, and it just generally won't feel as clean on the wrist. Moving on to myth number 3, this is that Swiss made is always better than Japanese or Chinese or German, etc. Country of origin is not a guarantee on quality straight up. Switzerland makes masterpieces and plenty of mediocre stuff as well. Japan pushes serious tech and reliability. China ranges from junk to genuinely excellent machining and finishing at the price. And Germany have debatably, not even debatably, in my opinion, the best movement finishing in the world. At the end of the day, what matters is pure quality. And talking about that, I need to say there's actually a few loopholes as to why Swiss made doesn't mean as much as it used to. For example, pre-1971, lots of watches made in Switzerland had the Geneva symbol. This basically just meant it was made in Geneva. This is the place that watches were made of high quality and a good standard back then. Although it is good to say it's a separate Canton level quality hallmark dating back to 1886. But again, it shows proper objective quality. If a movement has this stamped on it, it's good, just straight up, at least for the era. But in 1971, looser Swiss-made rules came about from the Ordinance of the 23rd of December. Basically, the Ordinance, which is, in this case, the use of Swiss or Swiss-made for watches, was made less strict. Basically, it allowed the watches to be called fully Swiss-made if the movement was Swiss, the watch was cased and finally inspected in Switzerland, and for the movement, at least 50% of its value was Swiss. This means that quite often, these days at least, the actual movements themselves are not even made in Switzerland, they are made somewhere else, all of the parts are made somewhere else, and they are then sent to Switzerland to be cased into the watch. Basically, I am saying all of this to explain that Swiss made is no longer something that really has much merit or meaning because there's loopholes that people can go through to be able to print it on their watch. For example, something that's gone absolutely viral recently is these Italian made bags which are made in China for 200 quid and then sold for 2,000 because someone stitched on a zipper at the end in Italy. It's similar with watches. That said, Swiss assembly is good, maybe even the best, or at least joint with Germany, but these days, Swiss made just doesn't mean objective quality at all. Instead, judge the quality of the actual object. I'm talking about the brushing alignment, the transition crispness, the dial printing, the crown feel, the bracelet tolerances, the clasp function, specs, design originality, etc. If it's good, it is completely passport irrelevant. I've had some of literally the best and the worst watches I've ever handled from Switzerland, and I've had some of the best and worst watches I've ever handled from China. Both of them do great stuff, and both of them do absolute rubbish. No country or no place of origin is a guarantee for quality. The only place in the world that I could sort of see a debate for this is maybe Glashütte, because generally all of the brands there are pretty well made, but even then, not 100% of the time. Now, if you're newer to watches and you sort of don't really know how to tell the objective quality of them, just because obviously it's quite a deep and in-depth thing to understand, then do say in the comments, I will do a video on it, and you're always welcome to join my Discord where you can ask me directly. Moving on to myth number 4, that is that bracelet quality equals the watch quality and vice versa. This is because a fantastic watch head can be completely let down by the bracelet, and a crappy watch head can look good because it has a good bracelet. Basically, people handle a watch for 10 seconds and declare it cheap because the clasp isn't over-engineered with amazing tolerances and such. In reality, machining, dial work, movement choice and wearability matter more than a milled brick of a clasp, though of course it is still preferable to have a milled clasp with an on-the-go micro adjustment system. Also, many integrated bracelet watches are actually designed to be better on a strap, on leather or on rubber. Oftentimes people forget that. Anyways, a good example is Seiko and Grand Seiko. Both have pretty generally well-made heads, decent dials and good enough movements, but absolutely terrible bracelets for the watch and the price range that you're paying for. I mean, it's so bad to the point where if I get a Grand Seiko, I would 100% of the time, without question, get a leather strap or a second-hand grey market bracelet of some sort to switch out on it, definitely. Why am I saying this? Well, specifically with a brand like Grand Seiko, I see people calling it absolute garbage, rubbish, undesirable, trash, because their bracelets are all of those things. But the dials are impeccable, the movements are pretty good, and the case and finishing on the cases are all really, really nice. It is just the bracelets. The bracelets being bad doesn't allow you to say that a Grand Seiko itself is bad. It's a half and half, you have to take it with what it is. Instead, I'd say evaluate the head first, the finishing, design cohesion, thickness and comfort, the build quality, etc. If the bracelet's mid, factor in a second-hand or third-party bracelet that you can switch out for it, and just add that onto the total price of the watch. Because you will wear it more and spend less upgrading to a different watch, just getting a new strap. A good example is for Seiko Prospex and Seiko 5. The bracelets are pretty terrible, so just get a second-hand or a third-party bracelet, chuck it on that, and you'll wear it twice as much. People underestimate the value of bracelets and of straps and rubber straps and such, because they just think, well, the watch comes with what it comes with, right? Generally speaking, a lot of really nice watches on leather straps come with pretty mediocre leather straps. Get a 120mm lug width deluxe leather strap, you can switch it out on the majority of your watches because that's the most common lug width, and bada bing bada boom, you have a lovely strap for multiple watch heads, because the watch head is where most of your money's going. Moving on to myth number 5, that is that longer power reserve automatically means a better movement. Now, everyone loves the 80-hour power reserve headline, right? But it's not a free and objective upgrade. In fact, quite often, brands usually have to get a longer power reserve by lowering beat rate, tweaking torque, or using different materials in the escapement. That can be great for weekend off wearers, but it can also come with trade-offs, like sometimes a thicker barrel, a slower second sweep, or weaker amplitude at the tail end of the power reserve, which basically just means that it's less accurate the less the power reserve is wound. In a few families, for example the PRX specific version of the Powermatic 80, it uses basically a plastic escapement, which is fine in practice, it's not absolutely abhorrent or anything, but it just generally means the movement is a bit less reliable, the movement isn't particularly as good as it could be compared to competitors, and it just means that the beat rate basically is going to be lower. It's a 3 Hz movement, which for the price range is pretty bad. Rarely, however, high power reserves can be done well and play into the watch. For example, the Christopher Ward Loco with 144 hours of power reserve that has a double barrel design, only possible because the escapement and balance wheel are on the front of the dial, or in super expensive and large, just unwearable pieces. Also, realistically speaking, for a daily, for the vast majority of people, you never need more than like 40 hours of power reserve, just speaking realistically. 40 hours of power reserve means if you don't wear it for a whole day and you sleep a whole night, it will still be fine when you pick it up in the morning. But if it's a daily that you wear day to day, obviously you'll probably wear it often enough to not even use half of that power reserve anyways. And even if that isn't the case, I still prefer a smaller power reserve watch because generally it means it can be thinner, it has a higher beat rate, it generally ticks nicer and sweeps smoother, etc, etc. And is it really the end of the world to have a watch that's thinner, more comfortable, beats better and looks better, but have to wind it or set the time once a day or every 2 days? It takes you 5 seconds. Instead, for daily wear, or at least in my opinion for any watch, as manual wound is actually preferred over automatic for me, a well-regulated 40-hour plus caliber that winds efficiently and stays thin can just be the better option for you. For example, I prefer the 4 Hz 40-hour power reserve Miyota 9000 series to the PRX Powermatic 80, which is technically a higher end movement and has 80 hours of power reserve, but is thicker, less reliable, less easily serviceable, and the parts availability isn't as good because only ETA, only Swatch Group can produce some of the parts in that movement. Anyways, with all that said and done, that is 5 watch myths that I think are untrue, get people to spend money and push them into buying the wrong product. If any of these changed how you think about watches or how you're going to buy a watch, please do let me know. If you have any other myths you'd like me to go into, also put in the comments so I can make part 2 of this video. And with that said, hope you enjoyed, like and sub if you did, and never forget, time keeps ticking, so use the time you have wisely.